Meditation is not the answer to everything, by the way. It can give you that full stop, only if you know how to do it correctly. It can give you that full stop, but it's not supposed to be your life. There was a man, he had never eaten salt, never. So one day, he ventured off to distant seas. It took him days before he got to another place. He got down there and he made some friends, and they invited him over like you've invited people today. He invited them they invited him for a meal, but they didn't know he had never tasted salt. So when he had the first bite, he said, "Wow, this is unbelievable. How come we have same meals back home, but they don't taste this way? There's something amazing in this." So, well, nothing unusual, we just put the usual stuff. He said, "No, I have to see. Can I see? Can I go into your kitchen and see?" And he said, "Sure." He showed him all the spices. And among all the things they put in, there was this thing sitting white in color. He said, "What is this? I've never seen this before." He said, "Oh, this is called salt." And he tasted it. "Ah, that's the taste," he said, "I had in my meal." He said, "Yeah, it's a common ingredient." He said, "Wow, this thing completely changed the taste. You know what? Please, I don't need your food. I'm just going to eat the salt." I don't need your food because this is the taste.
Very good.
So meditation, worship, anything, all these activities, even this activity we are doing right now, it's supposed to be the salt in your meal, not the meal itself. It's supposed to accentuate the taste of your life, of how to live, how to lead, how to be merry, and be happy at all times. That is Nirvana, a term Buddha used. It existed in our scriptures long before. Nevertheless, he used this term quite frequently, Nirvana, another term for salvation, moksha. But that's not the real meaning of Nirvana. The real meaning, the literal meaning of Nirvana is extinguished. When your desires are extinguished, when your grudges are extinguished, you've attained Nirvana. Nobody has ever come back from the dead and confirmed that there is heaven or hell. The only Nirvana we know is right here. If we are not peaceful here, this is hell. If you're happy here, this is heaven. Kerry Packer, Australia's richest man, died, and he was in the hospital. For a good 10 minutes after they checked, he was proclaimed dead after 10 minutes going through the whole medical procedure. After he was declared dead, 10 minutes after that proclamation, he got up. He came back to life. And of course, it was a big news. And he said, "Well, I have two things to tell you people. I have a good news and I have a bad news. The good news is there is no hell," he said. "The bad news is there is no heaven either. It's all here. It's all a state of mind." There was a man once. He died. I'm reminded of two things, in fact. I want to tell this one first. He died and he went up. And they said, "You've done a lot of good stuff in your life. So you have the choice between heaven and hell. Which one would you like first?" He said, "Well, can you show me around? Maybe I'll make up my mind that way. They said, sure. They took him to hell first. And there he saw a lot of people standing in front of platters and platters of amazingly cooked food, world cuisines from Italian to Thai. But they had spoons as long as their arms tied at their elbow, and they could not bend. So they would take a spoon, but they could not bend, so they could put nothing in their mouth. And they were clearly getting more and more agitated, more and more grieved. It's really painful. You have something in front of you, you really want it, but you can't have it. And then they took him to heaven. He saw exactly the same scenario there as well. The only difference was, in heaven, there was no agitation. They were able to feed because they were feeding each other. So they couldn't bend their arms either, but they were feeding each other. It's always a question of perspective. If your perspective changes, everything changes automatically. Where you are may be good or bad, but from somebody's perspective, it is the place to be. You're looking at somebody else, and they're looking at somebody else. And that is the whole problem. There was a man, he was crossing a river, and the river was on the rise. He couldn't see a bridge. And he shouted to a man across the river. He said, "How do I get to the other side?" And the man looked at him and said, "Well, you're already on the other side." He said, "You're already on the other side." But from his perspective, he wanted to get to the other side, and the other guy was thinking he's already on the other side. And this is the only thing that needs to switch in any relationship. If only you could see from the other person's perspective, there will be absolutely no conflict. There will be no argument. It's when we don't want to let go of the stance. If you look at the state of affairs, everybody is really only trying for eternal happiness. They're searching for permanence where it does not exist. That clinging onto that today is pretty cool, it's nice temperature, 20 degrees Celsius, I don't know what's that in Fahrenheit. So I just want that temperature every day of my life. I don't want too hot, I don't want too cold, I just want it perfect. That's the soul issue. If we could accept the changes, there is no struggle, there is no resistance then. There is no challenge. There is no conflict.